As we all know by now, Adrian Peterson is under investigation for child abuse. After pictures surfaced last week of his son's bruised and lacerated body, Peterson has admitted that he used a switch to beat his 4-year-old son after the boy pushed his sister off a video game accessory. Peterson has, rightfully so, been removed from the team, the slow-to-act Minnesota Vikings, albeit a paid leave. But while we can all agree that he went way too far in disciplining his child, some people have a hard time understanding how someone can physically hit a 4-year-old. I mean, even Peterson's statements show that he honestly didn't feel he did anything wrong. In a text message to the child's mother, he justified and even reveled in his excessive force, calling the boy tough, saying, quote, "He got about 5 more pops than normal. He didn't drop one tear. Shaking my head, he's tough as nails." And in conversations with investigators, he further cemented his thoughts, saying that he would never, quote, "eliminate whooping my kids because I know how being spanked has helped me in my life." A lot of people not born in the South, as evidenced by the Sports Nation poll, are appalled. But as you can see, the South agrees that spankings are okay. But surprise, the South also agreed in 1861 that slaves should be beaten as well. And while I'm not alluding that Southern parents view their kids as slaves, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson made an excellent point as to why black people, most of whom have Southern roots, feel as though beating their kids is necessary. In an intriguing yet horrifying op-ed piece for the New York Times I posted on my Facebook page earlier, he wrote, quote, while 70% of African Americans, or I should say, while 70% of Americans approve of corporal punishment, black Americans have a distinct history with the subject. Beating children has been depressingly a familiar habit in black families since our arrival in the New World. As black psychiatrists William H. Greer and Price M. Cobbs wrote in Black Rage, their 1968 examination of psychological black life, quote, beating and child rearing actually has its psychological roots in slavery, and yet even black parents will feel that just as they have suffered beatings as children. So it is right that their children be treated the same way. Black parents beat their children to keep them from misbehaving in the eyes of whites who had the power to send black youth to their deaths for the slightest offense. Today, many black parents feel that a loose tongue or a flash of temper could get their child killed by a trigger-happy cop. They would rather beat their offspring than bury them. Still continuing with the article, Adrian Peterson's brutal behavior towards his 4-year-old son, in truth, the violent amplification of the belief of many blacks that beatings made them better people, a sad and bleak justification for the continuation of practice in younger generations. After Mr. Peterson's indictment, the comedian D.L. Hughley also tweeted, quote, a father's belt hurts a lot less than a cop's bullet. That's tough but sobering words that are hard to argue against. Jonathan Marshall is a writer for the Abilene Reporter News and one of my very best friends. Does this change any opinion that you had so far on the AP story, this, I should say, article that Dr. Michael Eric Dyson wrote in the New York Times? What do you think, John?
No, it doesn't. I still think Adrian Peterson was wrong. There is discipline. There is rearing your child. There is abuse. And what that was, abuse. The photos that I saw, the lashes, I mean, I hate to be graphic, but I mean, he said he hit him in his testicles. I mean, blood is gashing from this 4-year-old boy. I mean, in any other situation, is that not abuse? And I refuse to believe this is the first time something like this has happened in an AP household. I understand what Michael Eric Dyson is saying, how it's deeply rooted, but at what point are we going to stop using some things as an excuse? We can't use that as a crutch. I'm just not buying it. I still think AP was wrong. It was abuse. I'm not buying this whole I'm disciplining my child. When he went over the line, that was completely overboard, in my opinion.
Now, we do have a father also joining us. His name is Dari. He is another one of my very good friends. He's a huge sports fanatic. And as a father, could you ever justify beating your not? I know your son's not 4, but if he is 4, beating your 4-year-old child?
No,
like that?
No. Not in the way that Adrian Peterson did. He went way over the line. And to piggyback on something Jonathan said, this isn't the first time that he has done this. There was an allegation that came out shortly after Minnesota Vikings reinstated him that another one of his children he beat in the car. And there's some text messages that show that he doesn't take joy in it, but it's something that he feels is necessary. And it's not necessary to beat your child. There's other ways to get to disciplining your children other than having to give them physical punishment. There's a lot of studies out there showing that physical punishment actually in the long run leads to more problems down the line. And what it really does is that it will get them to not do what they're doing at that moment, but it is not long lasting enough for them to be able to change the actual act that they're doing. I know for me, when I was a kid, I wanted to get spanked over getting punished, because when you get spanked, that takes 20, 30 seconds. When you get punished, you can't play video games or go outside or watch a movie or something. That goes for weeks to months. So there's a lot more effective ways to punish your kids. And just the feeling that he has, that he feels like he needs to do this, and this is the only way that he can get his point across, is actually pretty disturbing to me, because it shows that he has a lack of understanding of other ways to discipline his kid.
Well, I mean, if that's the way that he was brought up, the article also said people who get beat end up beating their children. That's what the study said. So if that's all that he's ever known, I mean, can you blame him for doing it this way?
Do we blame pedophiles or rapists for doing what they do?
That's different, but you're doing this. But like Adrian Peterson said, he's doing this because he saw how beatings helped him. So he's doing it in not an abusive mindset necessarily. It is abuse, no doubt, but his mindset is not one of abuse. His mindset is of correcting behavior, like his parents corrected him. There was a report out that said that he got beat in front of his schoolmates one time by his father. Just came to the school and just wore him out in front of his kids.
That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right.
I'm saying it's right.
Right.
But I'm saying, does that help you understand? Like, does that take the vilification out of the scenario? Like, is he a villain still in this, even though this is all he's ever known?
If you're abusing your child, if you're a child abuser, no, I mean, you're a villain to me. I don't care if you were raised in an environment or not. I mean, at a certain point, you're an adult. You should know right from wrong. I mean, he's been put in a position to where he should be surrounded by, higher class. I know he was raised in a, not to do well environment, but I mean, he's going on to college. He's in a certain class. I mean, he should be at least more well educated in this situation to know how to handle certain things better. I mean, he's in a better position than his parents were, or whoever raised him. He's in a better position. I mean, he can't use that as an excuse.
He also went on to say that, that's what made him who he is, Dari. I mean, and I know that we may have gotten beatings as kids, but times are changing. I understand that. But, it's kind of, black people have a certain sense of, okay, you're not black unless you did this. You're not really black unless you did this. And so I'm not trying to make an excuse for it. I'm just trying to understand why he did what he did. And to me, this explains it. Does it not to you?
It's an explanation, but at the same time, it doesn't, not even trying to use the word justify, but it doesn't absolve him from any responsibility that he has for doing this. Because
right.
if he's looking up to his parents, he should be wanting to change, because his father spent many a year in jail. So he's looking at what his father's done, and he's trying to emulate his father, but yet his father hasn't always given him the best role model to fulfill. And I know for myself, if I had a father that beat me, and then I saw the consequences of his lifestyle, because his father, I believe, went to jail over some violent crimes, I would want to be different from that, especially being in the public eye, especially knowing that I spent a lot of time without my father. There was a great piece, I don't know if it was E60 or if it was just a SportsCenter piece, about how his father didn't get to see him play for years, and there was a disconnect there, and now he's put himself in that same position with how he treated his child, to be disconnected from his child. Now granted, it's in Texas, so he's probably going to get off and not do any jail time, but he put himself in a position to be away from his child in emulating his father.
Should he get jail time?
I mean, if we can actually prove that he's really abusing his children, then yeah.
But is it malicious, or is it? See, this is the thing. This is the tricky part of the situation. This is why I can't just sit here and say Adrian Peterson's a bad person, because his reasoning behind it, his intentions are good. The way he carried it out was extremely wrong. But his overall intentions to correct his children's behavior, I don't know if you could put someone in jail for.
A lot of us have good intentions, but a lot of us have good intentions, but sometimes it ends up.
A murderer doesn't. Ray Rice didn't have good intentions when he hit his wife. Like, that's a completely different scenario. Let's not put this in the
I'm not comparing the two. I'm not comparing those two, but I'm just saying that doesn't excuse AP. Oh, he didn't mean it. Yeah, I mean he didn't mean it, but it is what it is. Look at those photos. If he's doing that repeatedly, I mean, at a certain point, enough is enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's abuse.
If this was a 7-year-old kid, would you have the same feelings? If this was an 8-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid, would you have the same feelings?
If you're repeating leaving your child with those scrapes, like like I don't care who you are, you shouldn't be putting scrapes and welts on people. Like, come on.
You as a father, the one thing that you have to have is self-control. I mean, he's a 200-pound, 8% body fat football player. He knows what type of force it takes to hurt somebody. He knows what type of force it takes to get a point across without leaving a mark, without leaving welts. And as a father, you need to have that type of self-control to be able to deal out punishment, because as a head of a household, as a head of your children, you have to be able to divvy out punishment, divvy out advice, divvy out life guidance all at the same time. And that comes with self-control, because you're going to get angry with some of the times your kids yell at you. My son is 5 months old, and I know he has no sense or in control of his actions, because he's basically just going off of, I'm hungry, I'm wet, I'm tired. But at the same time, when he screams and yells, it is frustrating. But if I were to go off the handle and give him a spanking or yell at him, that's not going to accomplish anything. So even no matter how old your child is, you have to continue to maintain that self-control and not let out your frustrations or your anger out on that child. Because from looking at those pictures, the pictures that I saw more than just discipline. I saw anger, I saw frustration, I saw letting all that out on that child.
That's something else that Michael Adrian, he tried to explain he didn't try. He actually explained it in the article. I definitely recommend that everyone reads it. He's not making an excuse for what Adrian Peterson did. He's just trying to explain, why black people, or why some black people with Southern roots feel like, they have to beat their child because it's easier to beat them. They rather beat them than, see them in a casket. Which is a fair point.
Well, that hasn't changed. We're still seeing black people, young black people in caskets regardless. So it's not going to stop. That's not going to stop.
If nothing happens from this, like if Peterson, like you said, Dari, if Peterson gets off, should the NFL still suspend him, or keep him on the exempt list that he has? Like, what should the NFL do?
Yes, they need to keep him on there. They have two. First off, they did the same thing to Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger wasn't charged. He was suspended for those rape allegations that happened
because he raped 2 girls.
Well, it was allegations. There was no charges brought on him. It was a civil case.
2 separate allegations, right?
He got suspended. So right now, especially with the Ray Rice fiasco, they need to keep him off the field. They need to keep him off the field. They need to show that they make a stance against any type of abuse, whether it's a child, a woman, or another person. They need to start making a stand, or they're going to start losing sponsors.
So Peterson gets off with 250 hours of community service probation for 2 years. Does the NFL reinstate him?
Yeah, he can come back and play. They brought back Mike Vick. They brought back Dante Stallworth, who actually killed somebody. They brought back Plaxico Burress, even though he shot himself.
So you immediately, you would, if you were Roger Goodell, you would immediately, oh God forbid we were Roger Goodell at this point in our lives. If you were Roger Goodell, you immediately reinstate him.
Eventually, he can play again. I wouldn't keep him off the field forever. He can play again. I don't know about this year.
But there's no additional punishments. I'm saying, like, for instance, say AP gets off in 2 months. It's December. Does he get reinstated in December, or does he remain suspended until the next year? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, where's your punishment at?
For me, he can come back next year. I think this season should be done for him, in my opinion.